Once upon a time, in a kingdom ruled by a powerful king, a dark sorcerer arrived and offered the king a deal that would grant him great power and riches. The king, blinded by his ambition, agreed to the sorcerer's terms without hesitation. In return for his help, the sorcerer demanded that the king give him his firstborn child. The king, in his greed, did not hesitate to sacrifice his own flesh and blood. When the child was born, he was cursed with a terrible affliction. His eyesight was taken from him, his limbs were twisted and useless, and his voice was stolen. The king, horrified by what he had done, ordered the child to be hidden away in a secret chamber deep within the palace walls. There, the child grew up alone, surviving on scraps of food and whatever he could find in the dark. As he grew older, he began to realize the true nature of his curse and the reason for his father's betrayal. He felt a burning desire to break the curse and take revenge on his father. Determined to regain his lost humanity, the young man set out on a journey to find the sorcerer and make him reverse the curse. But he quickly realized that he was not alone in his quest. The kingdom was in turmoil, and many people had suffered under the king's harsh rule. As he traveled, the young man met many people who had their own stories of pain and hardship. One of these people was Mai, a young girl who had lost her family to the king's army. She had become a skilled thief, using her wits and agility to survive on the streets. The young man and Mai crossed paths when they were both fleeing from the king's soldiers. They quickly became companions and began to travel together. As they journeyed, the young man's senses began to sharpen, and he learned to see the world in new ways. He used his heightened sense of smell and hearing to navigate the dangers around them. He also discovered that he had strange powers that were linked to the curse, which he used to protect himself and Mai. Their journey was not an easy one. They faced many dangers, including fierce monsters that the sorcerer had sent to stop them. They also encountered people who had been affected by the king's greed and tyranny. The young man saw firsthand the suffering that his father's ambition had caused, and he began to question his own desire for revenge. Finally, after many trials and tribulations, they arrived at the sorcerer's tower. The young man challenged the sorcerer to a battle, and with the help of Mai, he emerged victorious. The sorcerer, defeated, was forced to reverse the curse, and the young man's sight, limbs, and voice were restored. But the young man realized that revenge was not the answer. He had seen the suffering that his father's actions had caused, and he knew that he could not continue down that path. Instead, he decided to return to the kingdom and confront his father. When he arrived, he found the kingdom in chaos. The people had risen up against the king, and a great battle was raging. The young man realized that he had to do something to stop the bloodshed. He approached his father, who was fighting fiercely on the battlefield. The king did not recognize his own son, and he attacked him. But the young man did not fight back. Instead, he spoke to his father, telling him of the suffering that his ambition had caused. As he spoke, the king began to realize the terrible mistake he had made. He saw the pain in his son's eyes and felt the weight of his own guilt. Together, they ended the battle and made amends. The young man took his rightful place as the prince, but he did not rule with an iron fist like his father. Instead, he worked tirelessly to bring peace and prosperity to the kingdom. He abolished the cruel practices of his father's regime and began a new era of justice and compassion. Mai stayed by his side, using her skills as a thief to help those in need. Together, they became known as the protectors of the people, and their legend spread far and wide. But the young man never forgot the lessons he had learned on his journey. He knew that power could corrupt even the best of intentions, and he worked hard to remain humble and just. He also made sure to never take his senses for granted, using them to help others in need. Over time, the young man's curse became a distant memory. He learned to see the beauty in the world, and his eyes shone with a new light. He became known as the Seeing Prince, and his people loved him for his wisdom and kindness. Years went by, and the young man grew old. He knew that his time was coming to an end, and he prepared to pass on the throne to his own son. But before he did, he went on one final journey with Mai. Together, They visited all the places they had traveled to during their quest, and they helped those who were still suffering. They shared their stories and inspired others to believe in the power of compassion and justice. As the young man lay on his deathbed, surrounded by his loved ones, he felt at peace. He knew that he had done all he could to make the world a better place. And as he closed his eyes for the final time, he saw the faces of all the people he had helped over the years. The legacy of the Seeing Prince lived on long after he was gone, inspiring generations to come. And the young man who had once been cursed, limbless, and blind, was remembered as a hero who had overcome the greatest of obstacles to find true happiness and fulfillment.